Eligible In, where we interview eligible single people across the country, people who have been nominated by their friends and family, people who love and care about them. Today, we actually have one of our fellow hosts to interview, Alice, who is based in Atlanta. I am your host, or one of your hosts for today. My name is Coco. And we also have our host slash producer, Renee, who is also based in Chicago, along with myself. Alice, how are you feeling about being interviewed, being the subject matter?
Oh my gosh, it's definitely weird to be in this spot between hosting on Eligible In, plus in my work, I work in PR, which I'm sure we'll get into. I'm always coaching people on media interviews, and it's definitely a different story when you're in the hot seat.
Yeah. It's almost like you get nervous and you like forget all of that training.
Right. I was like, do I need to prep talking points? I'm like, well, I guess it's about my life. So probably not. I should be able to answer those.
Right, right. Well, we're really excited to interview you, get to know you, have everybody watching get to know you.
Me too. I'm excited to be here.
And Alice, we actually did reach out to some friends of yours because, in the spirit of our tradition of interviewing people endorsed by their community, we figured you had to have your own endorsement because even though we know you, we have to make sure that you're vetted. You're vetted by others.
Okay.
So, if you don't mind, I would like to read what your friend Leah wrote about you in her nomination, official endorsement. Okay, here we go. Alice has piercing blue eyes, excellent taste in music, and an extremely adorable golden retriever. She's one of those friends who you are always excited to introduce to new people because you simply have zero qualms about it going well. Things I know I can count on Alice for: perfect curated Spotify playlists. I listen to hers more than my own. Video clips that will make me laugh crying. And a genuine listening ear and incredibly thoughtful advice. She is a dining partner who knows that some bites are so good that they require a moment of silence, and is guaranteed to raise your appreciation for burritos and biscuits. And she continues with this, which we could edit out if you want, but it's I left P.S.
Oh, keep going. This is great.
She says, I left out her admirably ample rack because I assumed that might be inappropriate. But she did add that. And I thought you might like to know that Leah feels strongly about your ample rack. So
wow, thanks, Leah. Oh, that was really sweet and very flattering. Sorry you can't see it in the frame.
But if you want to, you should contact her after this interview.
You know where to find me.
Oh my gosh.
That's so sweet.
How long have you known Leah?
I've known Leah since college orientation. It was like one of those rare friendships that, like, you meet so many people during orientation, and like I feel like I don't talk to 99% of the people I met the first like couple weeks of college. But Leah, we connected on Facebook before we were even like at orientation, because you just friend everyone. And then we met at orientation, and just we've been best friends ever since. So it's meant to be. And she's how I met Renee, and here we are. But like, I don't even want to count how many years it's been since college orientation, but it's been a long time.
What college did you go to?
Boston University.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
But we got to talk about these playlists though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Specifically mention that somebody not only follows but listens to the playlists. What are some of your how do you make your playlists? What's your process? And like what's one of your favorites that you've made?
So, well, I'll start with my favorite because I think it's the one that Leah is most likely referencing. I've made other ones since then, but I have this playlist that it's called Just Keep Swimming. It's quoted from Finding Nemo, but I made it on a day. I was working a really, really stressful job, and a lot of times would just be like given like piles and piles of work and then have really small windows of time to get through it, and just had like panic attacks on panic attacks. And so I finally made this playlist called like, okay, just got to like put on a playlist, sit down, and just like something with a good beat and just like get the work done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that playlist started. And it basically like was just a playlist that has just anything with a good beat that I feel like I could like type in rhythm to, like get
Oh,
into.
nice.
So I just basically just started, this is how I make a lot of my playlists, is I like come up with like a mood I want to feel. And then anytime I hear a song that makes me feel that way, I like put it on the list. And I forget why, I think Leah said she needed like a good working playlist. And I was like, oh, here's this one I made like 3 years ago that I just like add to here and there. So it's grown quite big. And so I sent that to her and she really liked it. Cause I also have music taste across like a lot of different genres. So a lot
Mm-hmm.
of my playlists, like I'm almost embarrassed to put them on in public with people I don't know that well, because I'm like, 1 minute it'll be like rap, 1 minute it'll be like bluegrass, the next minute it's like R&B. I don't know. It's all over the place. So, but I like what I like.
Yeah, same. Your process sounds very similar to mine, where it's like, I want to create a specific mood. Like my Halloween playlist it's so good, but I
You're
also
gonna have to sing
have,
that.
oh yeah, I'm totally down. I love music, so I will definitely down to share playlists. I also have my summer playlist is really, really
Mm-hmm.
good. But yeah, I love, and then I'll just like continually add if it like fits the same mood or like gives me the same vibe.
Yes.
But
Well, and
yeah,
it's
they're all
nice.
over the place.
Yeah, yeah, but that's like, it gets boring otherwise. I mean, I
Yeah.
another one of my favorite ones I have, because now that I live in Atlanta, I live within driving distance of family, which is partially why I moved here. So I take a lot more like not crazy long, but road trips since living
Mm.
here than I did before. And I found that like this is going to sound really nerdy, but I could just listen to music for like hours on end while driving. Like I don't need to call anyone. I don't need to put on a podcast. Sometimes I will, but I just, as long as I have like a good playlist, I could just do that and just kind of space out. But I realized I wanted a like curated playlist of songs that I know most of the words to, that have like really good harmonies that I can like sing, blast, and like sing really loud like most of the drive. So I started that one, and that one has also gotten really large and weird, because anytime I'm like, oh, I love singing the song, like that needs to go on
Yes.
that playlist. And then I'm like a one-man band in my car, like harmonizing and like I've definitely caught myself just getting one like speeding really fast because I'm like getting really into a song and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going 95 miles an hour.
I'm
I should
dead.
probably like remember that I'm driving. Or like getting really into like the theatrics of it and realizing like people can see me, but whatever.
You're on a highway. It's fine. They'll never see you again.
Would you ever do this with a date, Alice? A duet, perhaps?
I would, yeah, 100%.
Okay.
I've done that before with like in past relationships, and that's when I know like I'm like found a good one. If I can like do that with someone, that's like I'm like, okay, we get it. We get each other.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You have to get each other's weird.
Exactly. And like find it as fun as I do.
Yeah. And then we were talking about this before we started recording, but you have a new dog. Do you
Yes,
want
I
to
do.
do you want to talk about your new fur child?
Yes, yes, I do. And wow, okay, he's not even paying attention. Ouch. I thought he'd like lift his head, but he is fast asleep. Yeah, so I actually started fostering dogs the beginning of this year. I've been thinking about getting, I love dogs and just animals in general, but I've been thinking about getting a dog for a while. Before I lived in Atlanta, I lived in LA for a long time, and my last apartment was a studio, didn't allow pets, and it was my first time living alone, and I was like, I like living alone, but it would be really nice to just like have another buddy around, like not a roommate, but just another presence.
Another, yeah, living being.
Yeah, like a heartbeat, like another
Yeah.
heartbeat in the apartment, not a plant. But it just like wasn't doable in LA. And then when I moved to Atlanta and was able to live in a bigger apartment, and it's a very walkable city, and I was working fully remote at the time, I started to think about it more seriously. And so I got into fostering as sort of like a stepping stone to like, okay, I'm not committing to adopting, but I'm
Mhm.
seeing what it's like to have a dog. I'm helping out dogs that need it in the meantime. And then as soon as I started doing that, Renee got to meet a couple of my fosters that I was not able to keep. But I eventually, with this dog, was just like, he's the one. I just love him. He's just so snuggly. His name is Benny. He's 9 years old, but he acts a lot of times like he's 4 or 5. Very chill when he's at home, very snuggly, very clingy, like follows me. We're on the couch and I get up and walk 5 feet to the kitchen. He, even if he's fast asleep, like jumps up and follows me. And like the kitchen is literally attached to the living room.
Relatable content. My mom used to call our dog, my dog now, my shadow, because he literally does the same. I'm like, I'm going up to go to the bathroom. Like, you can chill.
I literally say that sometimes verbatim. I'm like,
yeah,
relax. I am literally going to the bathroom. I'll be back in 2 seconds. You do not need to get up.
yeah.
You
I'm
look
like,
so cozy.
man. I'm like, I thought my anxious attachment style was bad, but
Same.
yours.
I'm like, wow. Really puts it in perspective.
Yeah. So you're looking for somebody who can obviously enjoy your playlist and likes animals, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Preferably a dog person, but you know, as long as you like animals, I'm fine with it.
Okay, so Alice, we already established that you live in Atlanta. Talk about how dating has been there, if it's different from other cities that you've lived in. And like, what do you like about Atlanta in general? Favorite places to go?
Yeah. So I've lived in ever since I grew up in upstate New York, but didn't really date there. So I would say my dating journey started when I was in Boston for college and then stayed for a couple years after. Then I lived in LA, now in Atlanta. So obviously, like 3 very different cities in every sense of the word. Definitely big differences in dating between the 3. I also think some of it has to do with the ages I was when dating in those cities.
Yeah.
But I still think there's something to be said for like the different quality, well, maybe not quality, but like the different types of people I come across, but also maybe
You know what? Quality is important,
like
though.
a little bit. Well, I'll just walk you through it. So in Boston, I dated in college, but not seriously, and was in a somewhat serious relationship right after college. I found that dating in Boston, and no offense to anyone, I love Boston. I love going back there, but I felt at that age, and this is partially why I moved to LA, not totally why, but when I was in Boston, I felt like I just kept going on dates with like the same guy, like over and over again. Like worked in finance, big Boston sports fan, like wearing a Red Sox hat and like a North Face fleece and like wanted to get beers. Like
Yeah.
totally I like doing those things.
You know what that reminds me of? Have you heard that TikTok sound where that woman's like, I need a guy who works in finance, 6'5",
Yes.
blue eyes. That is like literally what you just described.
If you want that, go to Boston.
Except they're not 6'5". They're like,
and they're very short. They are
7.
short.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once again, no disrespect to all the short kings out there, but
right. Yeah.
Very stocky, kind of like.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. I like when Boston was my first foray like into a big city, like so I was like, oh, Boston, like I'd seen Good Will Hunting and I was like, I'm gonna meet like a Matt Damon, Ben Affleck type, and it is there, but it's just once you've gone on like the same date over and over and over again with different guys. Like I went on one date with a guy who was a huge Bruins fan on our like 3rd or 4th, and we were really hitting it off, getting along. On our 3rd or 4th date, he was like, all right, I'm going to take you to a Bruins game. And I was like, that's awesome. I've never been. I'm like not deep into sports as in I follow it, but I do like to go to sports games.
Yeah.
Like I find them fun and entertaining, but I don't like sit down and watch sports in my spare time. So I was like, oh, this will be fun. And he was like, I just have to warn you, like I am a diehard Bruins fan. So, and this is like a big game. So I'm just warning you, like I'm going to get really into it. And I was like,
Boston sports fans are
crazy.
Sorry, I don't know if you heard the
oh yeah,
the ambulance, but no, they're like actually some of the worst.
It's scary. Well, so here was the problem with this. So one, like, I mean, I know how hockey works. Like, it's pretty straightforward, but I don't know like all the rules, and I don't know who all the players are. So
I don't think the players know all the rules either. You know what I mean?
Just let's fight.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we go to the game. He's warned me ahead of time that he's going to get really intense, and he'd been this like sweet, like mild mannered, like he's like a fourth grade teacher. I was like, okay, whatever. So we get to the game. So there are two problems. One, I had a lot of questions about the game, but I was trying to show interest,
Right.
like in what he's interested in. And I genuinely wanted to know. And two, there was something at TD Garden. I don't know if this is still the rule, but you have to have your passport to get drinks, even if you're over 21.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember that, Renee, but it was a thing.
I don't know if that's still a thing. Hopefully
That's
not.
It was at
wild.
the time, and I had forgotten that, and I hadn't brought my passport. But we're like, he's like wanting to drink beers. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to sit here and not drink. So I kept being like, can you get me a beer? Can you get me a beer? And like, he kept having to like get up, and I could tell I was getting increasingly annoyed. It's not like I was drinking like crazy beers, but still.
Right. Yeah.
So anyways, there was tension mounting most of the game. I just tried to be oblivious to it. And then the Bruins ended up losing. They were playing the Montreal team. I forget what they're called, but it's like a big rivalry, I guess. And on our way out, he was just like silent. Like he had been intense the whole game. I think he was also really annoyed with me. And then he was like so pissed that they lost. And I'm here like on my fourth date trying to like cheer him up and, I don't know, just like make it not so awkward. And so I was like, hey, it's just a game. At the end of the day, it's just a game.
But like literally that.
It is.
It's a game.
I never heard from him again after that date.
Alice, honestly, he probably like looked into an oracle and was like, if the Bruins fucking win, this is the one. This is the one.
No, that's
gonna
so
happen
real.
For me if the Bruins win.
Yes. And that is why he's probably still single.
Yeah, actually, we follow each other on Instagram. He's married and I'm still single. But, I wouldn't have been happy with him, so it's fine.
Yeah, I'm not going to delve deep into that. Men with sports, I'm like, it's just so funny how they really want to go on and on about how women are so dramatic and emotional. Right? And I'm like, have you watched yourself watch a sports game? Yeah. Like, have you, like, the fact that like a sports game, like the outcome of a sports game can make or break their mood for like not just the rest of the day, but for like days, weeks, months is crazy. I'm like, you need regulation, emotional regulation.
Literally had a guy here in Atlanta when I first, and it's not nearly as bad here, but I did have a guy. I mean, it is the South, so like a lot of like college football, UGA, like that kind of thing. I did have a guy who I was dating a couple of years ago, early on, like we didn't make it very far, but he hadn't reached out like for a week. And when I called him out on it, he was like, sorry, I was in a shame spiral about my fantasy football team. And I was like,
no.
And that's why you didn't text me?
That's you should be ashamed to tell anybody that out loud. And
I was like, what was the shame spiral? Like, you weren't playing football. Like,
oh my God.
And you couldn't say hey, how's your week? Because you were shame about fantasy football? Okay.
Yikes.
I have no words. His shame over his shitty draft picks?
I didn't even ask. That's how little I cared. I was like, okay.
Okay. So add to the list of qualities you don't want: a man who puts sports above everything.
Yes. And to be clear, I do enjoy the atmosphere of watching sports.
Yeah.
I like to get into it. Like, I like going to different games. I have dated guys, seriously, who are very into a team. However, they don't let it rule their entire life.
Right.
As long as it's like you can love sports. In fact, I find that attractive, but just not so much that it's like, I'm not going to speak to you for the rest of the day because my team lost.
Or go into a shame spiral. Whatever the hell that means. Okay, so now that we've got a picture of what men in Boston.
Yeah, so that's Boston.
That's Boston. What did LA look like?
LA, so what's funny is that when I moved from Boston to LA, I'd moved for a variety of reasons, but partially it was because I loved Boston, but I was like, I'm 23, I'm single, I can live wherever I want. And I visited LA, I loved it. and I was like, that's where I want to go. I knew I had a couple, one of my best friends from college is out there, and from there, so I kind of was able to like plug into her group of friends. But I just kind of wanted an adventure, and honestly thought it would just last a couple years. It ended up lasting almost 10. But one of the things I was like, I just feel like dating in Boston is just so boring. Like, I think in hindsight, like I wasn't actually like, probably in hindsight, the guys that were boring to me, aside from the Boston sports of it all, were probably like, I want to get married like tomorrow. And I thought that's what I wanted at the time, but I did not. I wanted to like, I was like, I want to go to LA and have some just like crazy dating experiences and just date all different kinds of people and like see what's out there, which I did. But then like that was like too far in the opposite direction because the way I would describe the LA dating scene is just like batshit crazy. Like, it was fun for a while. I collected a lot of interesting stories. You know, it did help me learn like what I like, what I don't like, but it was crazy. And by the time I was out there a lot longer than I expected, I actually was in a serious relationship for about 3 of those years. But after that ended and the pandemic hit, on the other side of it, I was like, I'm on the other side of 30. I'm on the other side of a pandemic. When I moved to LA, I wanted adventures. I wanted like variety, and I got that. And I simply don't think I can date here anymore. Like, it just, I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So I would say a lot of like man children and like men with Peter Pan syndrome who have moved out to LA either to chase a dream or like think that they're like in Entourage. And so they're like in their 40s acting like they're like 20. And after a few too many of those, I was like,
yeah.
I'm starting to notice the red flags a little bit more.
Right. So
you're the Goldilocks of dating, Alice.
Seriously, I know. Hopefully Atlanta's the just right one.
Boston, too sporty. LA, too flashy.
Just too boring. LA, too crazy. Atlanta, TBD.
Yeah.
TBD. Yeah. So how's it been thus far?
So dating in Atlanta, I would say I'm single, and I've lived here for 3 years, so it's not like amazing, but I don't think that's because of Atlanta. I think that's just because of how the apps are now in general everywhere. I do find that like the guys that I've dated here are trying to figure out how to compare this. Despite all the crazy in LA, I feel like I also went on a lot of dates where I just was like, that was not bad. It wasn't good. It was just, I just feel nothing. I'm just either not attracted to the guy or like, I just wasn't interested in the conversation, or I don't know. I would say at least in Atlanta, although despite one relationship here, everything else hasn't really panned out. I will say most of the dates I go on, I'm like, I like that guy. Like, which I didn't have in Boston or LA. So I do feel like I'm more in my like dating element here in terms of like the type of guy I'm looking for, but men have still been acting fools here as well. And I think it's part of dating in your 30s.
Yeah, I think just across the country, the globe, there's a trend with just men in general.
I'm really trying not to be a man hater, but like when it happens time and again, I mean, at a certain point, you gotta.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I think this is a good opportunity because we have 3 women here. And Alice, you've had a myriad of experiences in various cities across the country. I myself have just taken a complete hiatus from dating for a very long time. Coco, where are you at with your journey here?
I dated someone for very quickly, like a month at the beginning of this year, that didn't end up working out. And the year prior, I had a really, really bad breakup. So I was just kind of like, it just piled up, and I was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm deleting everything. I'm over it. I've, since like emotionally regulated myself. And I was like, I just need some dick, for lack of a better word.
Oh my God, I did the same thing recently. Coming out of a breakup and was like, I don't want to deal with all that, but I do need some dick.
Yeah, I'm like, as long as you don't open your mouth too much and you're good in bed, that's all I really care about.
Yes.
But I will admit, I am at a point where like I have a lot of contempt for men. I have a lot of contempt for men. And honestly, I'm also pansexual. So when I do feel like I'm ready to get back into dating, unless a miracle happens,
Mm-hmm.
I will not be dating men. I will date
I don't blame you.
anybody but a straight man.
Okay, so
I do not blame you.
So we're all kind of in this like man break period,
Yeah.
let's say.
Well, I dipped my toe back in a couple weeks ago, and then I yanked it
Okay.
out real fast when I got what I needed. I was like, this is
Yeah.
no longer serving me.
Okay. So you're in a warm up, cool
I'm
down.
dabbling.
You're dabbling.
But
Okay,
I'm back
so
off the apps completely once again.
what if we just take this opportunity to, like, Alice, if you were to give some advice to the men you have dated, or just the general population of single men that are out there on the apps, what have you?
Oh my God. How long do you want this interview to be? Because I could talk about this forever.
Yeah, this could be its own like podcast series.
But I do think they just need a little help. Okay, so
I don't like this is going to be sort of event about my most recent experience, but it has a purpose. So I went on an app recently. I didn't want to go back on the like traditional dating apps because I hate those, which is why we're creating this.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
I was like, I need dick. I want to flirt. Like maybe want to go on a couple dates, but like no pressure. Like I just want to like get back out there because I had a bad breakup this spring and like just wanted to like feel good and like feel sexy and like feel wanted. And but at the end of the day, as much as I like just wanted to hook up and wanted something casual, like I'm a romantic at heart and I know myself. And so even if I were to just hook up with someone, there's always the back of my mind, we're like, or maybe like this could be something more. So
Yeah.
I matched with these two guys on this app, which is more of like a hookup, like casual app, I guess. And actually ended up hitting it off with these two different guys, went on dates with both of them separately. And one of them I actually went on a couple dates with, and like we like didn't go very far and like just had like some deep conversations. The other one did go far and like also had deep conversations. And with both of them, because it was this hookup app, the nice thing was that it felt like there was a lot of pressure off. Like you could just be a lot more like upfront and just like they were like, why are you on here? And I was like, well, I was in a relationship with someone that I met off an app, ended it terribly. It really fucked me up. Sorry, I hope I can swear on here.
This is the honesty of like of dating though. You
I mean,
know what I
it's
mean?
impossible to talk about without profanity because
Yeah.
it's so
profanity inducing, yes.
Yes.
So yeah, so it was like he ended it terribly. It really fucked me up. I've taken the last couple of months just to like, as you said, emotionally recalibrate. Didn't want to go back on those like the Hinges and Bumbles of the world because that's what I was on before and hated it. So I decided I'd try this and see what's up. And if something else comes out of it, great. If not, great. But what was nice about that is that I was able to talk with both men about past dating experiences, both not just mine, but theirs too. And we talked about communication. Like I was saying, like, yeah, I think it's just so ridiculous. Like I'm 36 and I've dated guys older than me. My ex from this spring is about to turn 40. Like still, I was like, I just think it's so ridiculous when you can't communicate at this age, especially early on in dating. So this would be my advice, which I gave them, who both ended up ghosting me even after these conversations. Is like, if you're not interested, it's okay. It's so much better to just, especially early on when it's pretty low stakes, to just be like, hey, I had a great time getting to know you. Make something up if you have to, but just be like, I'm just not feeling enough of a connection with you, or I just don't think I'm ready for anything right now, or whatever. Just say something. It takes 2 seconds. Don't ghost people. And like, if you're having doubts, this is more to my ex-boyfriend directly, like be more communicative about it up front instead of pretending like everything's fine and then randomly dropping off, which is almost worse than ghosting in some ways. So anyways, I would just say communicate. Like, don't be so afraid of it. Like, I know it's different for men than it is for women, but like it really could solve a lot of the problems I've had with dating, and is one of the many reasons why I have a lot of contempt for men right now as well. Because I'm just like, I literally point blank told both these guys, hey, just want to say, if at any point you're not into it, please just tell me. Just don't like drop off the earth. They're like, oh yeah, totally. I can't believe when people do that. Likewise for you. And then a week later, still did it.
We interviewed someone, Coco, remember Mary? She was saying how she always makes a point to break it off with someone honestly and openly. And she did it to this one guy, and she, wrote this really nice, sincere message, I think, or told him in person. I forget the medium of communication, but she was basically like, I'm not feeling it. This isn't for me, using more delicate words. And he was like, why wouldn't you just ghost me? That would have been so much better. What? Yeah.
So do they ghost because they would prefer to be ghosted?
I honestly think that's it. I don't know.
Well, that's ironic because there was someone, sorry, now I'm getting on my soapbox, but there was a guy here, he was early on in my Atlanta dating experience, who I kind of was feeling, but I wasn't sure. And after like a few dates, I probably gave it a couple dates too many to figure it out, because I could tell he was a lot more into it than I was. And I just I had a lot of travel coming up, so I just kind of tried to let that be the like distance. And then weeks later, he ended up like reaching out, and I was like, oh, guess you didn't get the hint. I will end it. And when I told him how I was feeling, he sent me a pretty horrible text message. It was like really awful. Like I had to have an emergency session with my therapist.
Oh my God.
To figure out how to respond.
Jesus.
And when I did eventually respond, just say like, I have no idea where this is coming from. You can't talk to me like that. I sure could have communicated better, but like, there's no reason you should be like slut shaming me and saying I was lying to you. We weren't in a relationship. So, but he did apologize, but he was like, I just can't stand being ghosted. I wish you would have just broken it off with me. So ever since, I make a point to end it when I'm not feeling it. So you just can't win,
Yeah. And that's why, like, I know you said like what Renee, like what advice, or like you said something about like helping them out or whatever. And I'm like, I don't feel the need to help men out. I don't feel the need. Like there is like, if we're going to have a conversation, sure. Like let's have a conversation, but like, you're an adult, you're a grown ass person. Like, and it's not like Google is free. Like you're like, you know what I mean? It's not like we don't know like how to help better ourselves, right? There's therapy, there's group therapy there. I mean, there's just so many. I'm like, we live in a world that caters to men. And so they feel the need to do not even the bare minimum. And they don't know, like, so when you give them an actual challenge, they don't know what to do with that because they've never had to really work for that in this society. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of things I could talk about. Communication, for sure. Don't be a pathological liar.
Yeah.
That's what I dealt with last year. Like, one of those,
Yep.
yeah, where I was dating this guy, right? And I asked him, he told me in the beginning, like, I'm not looking for, this is exactly what he said in a text message. I'm not looking for a relationship right now, but I'm looking forward to going on more dates with you. I took that as, okay, maybe not right now, but let's see where this progresses. And that's where I'll take some accountability of like, I didn't communicate as well. I didn't really say anything. I was like, cool, instead of like saying explicitly. And to be fair, at the time, I didn't even know that like what I wanted was a relationship. But like that's where my accountability stops, because I asked him,
I've done the exact same thing.
I asked him multiple times over the course that we were dating, are you seeing anybody else? And he said no. Come to find out, he was dating multiple other women and lying to all of us about it. And I'm like, if you want to date multiple people, like I'm fine with ethical non-monogamy or polyamory. Like I'm okay with that. You just need to let me know, one, for health reasons, and two, like just or like if you want to be like, hey, I want to see other people, like give me the informed choice so I can make the decision whether I want to continue seeing you or not. And by the way, he also passed, I didn't get it, but he did pass around an STI.
Oh my God.
So like, and this is where I'm like, this man also almost 40. I'm like, I don't feel the need to help you.
Yeah.
That kind of behavior, like trying to give people grace and trying to be open and kind, to only be hit back with vitriol or being called a bitch or just being absolutely disrespected. I don't, that is not going to garner sympathy from me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's like, I mean, I have spent all this time, like, I listen to dating podcasts. I am in therapy where most of what I talk about is dating. Like, I'm doing all this work on myself. So,
Right.
like, all I ask is the same. But,
Yeah.
you know,
It's, I mean, and there was a study, there was statistics that came out a little bit ago, and I can't remember what it was, but like it was like surveying men and like how often, like, do they have, like, do they feel like they have friends? Do they like talk to their friends? Like, and it turns out men don't talk to each other. They literally just
Mhm.
suffer in silence. Like they would rather, and that's, I think this is where my sympathy stops, is that it's like, I think men should be able to express themselves openly and freely however they want. They should be able to cry. They shouldn't have to live up to some unrealistic standard of what masculinity is or can define that for themselves. But like, they would quite literally rather sit in silence and suffer in silence than help themselves. I cannot
Yeah.
help somebody who doesn't want to be helped. So like, sorry, but I'm not going to continue throwing myself into the fire for you only to be treated terribly.
Totally. Totally. I think I understanding that, like, once I realized that, because I heard something similar and I had just noticed before that, um, like, I have a lot of close friendships, a lot that I lean on that make being single still like livable.
Yeah.
And like, I've noticed that a lot of guys I've been in serious relationships with, but even guys I've just like casually dated, like, don't have close friendships. Like,
No.
and I remember my last two relationships, including the most recent one, when we broke up, I was like, well, thank God. I was like, I have a great friend group here in Atlanta, but also just in general. So, like, I'm going to be fine. But I was like, he had friends, but they were weird. Like, and not, and just like disconnect. Like, I have like a friend group who like know each other. We do fun stuff
Yeah.
together. His was like just kind of here and there, not very close. And I was like, who's he going to hang out with? Like, who's he going to talk to? And then I realized, oh, guys don't really care about that. Like,
They don't.
I would hate that.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that like they should be able to like express their vulnerability and what they're going through. Like, men also deserve to have community and support.
Yeah.
But again, if
Totally.
you're not going to work towards like seeking that out for yourself or like breaking any sort of cycles, like, I'm sorry, women are like their lives are quite literally like being put in danger, and you're like mad and screaming, "Not all men!" Like, I don't feel sorry for you. I don't
Yeah.
feel sorry for you.
Sorry, bud.
I
But
try to, yeah, I guess I just, I have a 27-year-old nephew who, in my eyes, is such a good man and such a faithful boyfriend, you know, and a serial monogamous kind of guy. But I remind myself that at one point he was a dick to some girl, most likely.
yeah,
And so I guess it's not so much advice, but a sort of like wise old auntie philosophy I like to adopt as someone who has three nephews is like, I like to think that today's dick will be, or sorry, today's asshole, because we've been using dick in a
Yeah.
very different way.
Positive,
Today's
more positive
jackass,
context.
more targeted. Today's asshole is tomorrow's, you know, nice boyfriend, is what I like to believe.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that, you know, even the guy who did the shitty thing to you, Alice, who texted you kind of vitriolic words, hopefully a year or two from now, he'll be really good to his girlfriend, you know? So I guess my advice
Yeah.
to the men is acknowledge all those times you were an absolute dick Sorry, absolute jackass.
Yeah.
And don't do that. Don't do those things that you did to that girl Alice or Coco. Like, don't do that shit anymore. Leave that behind and don't make it part of your identity, and we're good.
Yeah.
Our society can function a little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, it's like and it's not like women or anybody else, however they identify, can't be terrible people or do terrible things. Like, everybody fucks up in their life. Like, we're not perfect. We're human. It's like what you do, like you said, Renee, like what you do after that. Like, are you going to continue just like not like recognizing people's humanity and like giving them the respect and like that they deserve and like treating them the way that they deserve? Or like, are you going to continue being this jackass? It's like, you have to learn, like, acknowledge and learn from your mistakes. And like, you can't change the past. And like, even if you could find every person that you treated terribly and like try to apologize or, do some sort of like restorative justice, like, even if they don't want to hear it, you know what I mean? Like, at least like acknowledging that you've done that and like striving to do better.
Yeah, that's the core of the issue, I think, is like, and I think the apps, I think, served a purpose for a time, but now they've like kind of jumped the shark, because I think what's happening now is people aren't seeing the humanity because they know they can just go on and find someone else in like 2 seconds, or find like several more people in like 2 seconds. And so I feel like in these instances, except for the guy, ironically, the guy that was sent the mean text, I was like, it's not that deep. Like, we really need to like take a step back here. But all the other experiences of like being ghosted or just being tossed aside, it just like feels like people are thinking of, and I guess I could say this for women too, but I'm biased, so I would say more men, but are treating each other like they're disposable. And like, if I just stop talking to you, I don't have to deal with you being mad at me or scared at me or sad or like spiraling over why I stopped talking to you. I can just pretend it doesn't exist and live my life and not have to deal with any of the negative repercussions. And even my relationship that I found on an app, even though we were together, for several months, it was a little bit more than that, and like things progressed pretty quickly. At the end of the day, like, we met on an app, so we don't have any mutual friends. We had never met each other before, so we're not really in the same circles. So when we broke up, it was like an easy, like, okay, bye. I mean, it was not like that. It was
right. But,
like, I didn't have to deal with like, oh, my friends talking to him or seeing him out. Like, we were just able to like separate. I just deleted him on social media, and that's that. Like, unless I randomly bump into him in Atlanta, like, our paths like likely won't cross. So that's the problem with the apps, is like, you're not meeting through mutual interests or friends or anything like that. It's just,
yeah. I mean, in some ways that, like, I feel like you can, if you both are like serious enough or like committed enough to being in each other's lives, like, obviously you're going to start to integrate yourselves into like each other's friend groups or eventually family and what have you. But sometimes it's like, I think about that and I'm like, that's kind of nice, because now I don't have to like untangle that web.
that is true.
I think there are people on the apps, like the three of us, who genuinely do want to find connection and they do want to have the conversation, and they, whatever. But it does take work. And I think that's also the other thing, is that people want a quick and easy, no mess, no complication kind of thing. And I'm like, that's not what being human is. Like,
Totally.
being human in general is just, it's messy, it's complicated, it's nuanced, it's layered, and people want to just take that out. And when you take all of that out, you do take out the humanity. Like, I would rather die alone, like, knowing that I have the relationships of my friends and people and a support system, and lived my life and did what I wanted to do, instead of settling for some musty, dusty, crusty ass person who sucked the joy out of my life. All right, Alice, thank you for part 1 of this interview. Really enjoyed talking to you and getting into it. We are going to have a part 2, so everybody stick around. We will be back whenever we're back. Yeah, Alice, thank you so much for kikiing with us.
Yes.
And we'll see you on the next one.
Sounds good. Thank you guys. I can't wait to keep chatting.
Thanks for listening to Eligible In, a production of Eligible In Media. Our theme song is by Monster Rally. If you see someone you like on our show, or if you would like to nominate yourself or someone you love to be interviewed by us, please visit us at eligiblein.com for more information, including a link to subscribe to our newsletter, where you can stay up to date on our newest episodes, as well as exclusive features of our eligible people. Lovely.